Okay, we're recording. I'm famous at like never remembering to record, so thank you, Amanda, for that. And I see that we have folks kind of trickling in, and I'm just gonna give it like a few more seconds. Do we have anybody else in the waiting room, Amanda? This is it? All right. Great turnout. Sweet. So I'm like making sure I spell graduate school right. Okay. I just changed the slides around a little bit. We just had an international focused uh Grad 101 right before this, everybody. And so I was trying to change my slides to take out anything. And then, when you fix things, you inadvertently create new mistakes. I'm very good at that. So hopefully everything is spelled correctly. And if it's not, just know I'm a human. At least I'm not some AI chatbot, right? But also I might be because AI is getting really good. So this none of us are real. We're anyway, welcome to Graduate School 101. This is really the kind of our biggest overview of how to apply for graduate school that we do kind of under the umbrella of the College of Graduate Studies every year. So, thanks for being here today. We're going to do a domestically kind of focused Grad 101 because we do two separate sessions now because we see that the needs of domestic students versus international students are different. And I have several of my colleagues here from the College of Graduate Studies and Graduate Admissions, Taylor Brady, Amanda Palmer, Polly Tejano, Jay Cox, and Chelsea Massa here, who are going to help answer questions in the chat. Polly is also going to speak about kind of a lot of the admissions focused, kind of the nuts and bolts of like what makes a successful application. So I'll have some slides here, and then Polly is just going to kind of demo the application and kind of really just show you what makes a kind of a successful application to graduate school. Um, so like I said, Polly and myself are going to be speaking today, but everyone else can help field questions in the chat, and so feel free to kind of put your thoughts in there. We'll do our best, right, to field them throughout this presentation, and then we will take some time at the end to Polly and myself can answer questions that couldn't be answered in the chat. Just for context, I forgot to mention this. I'm the director of graduate student support programming here in the College of Graduate Studies at the University of Idaho, and Polly is the director of graduate admissions. So, really, just from the institutional side, we're probably who you want to be talking to in terms of just the application process. And then we'll talk about how to kind of reach out to faculty and departments here and how to be kind of having those conversations as well. Um, Objectives today, kind of a rough overview of what we're going to be covering. General information about Moscow, Idaho, and the University of Idaho. So, some of you may be U of I students, but I was going through the registrations and I saw that a number of you are not. So, some of you are from other parts of the country. So, we want to just kind of have a little bit of information about where is Moscow, Idaho. It's not Moscow, Russia. Haha, right? That's the anyway, that's the joke. And then what is the College of Graduate Studies, right? So who are we? What does our department do? How to begin the process of applying to graduate school. This bullet point really should be or to kind of finish the process of applying to graduate school. Many of you are in various stages, right? So some of you are maybe sophomores and you're just beginning to think about what that should look like. Some of you are literally applying as we speak and are thinking about those December, January, February deadlines that are quickly approaching. So we'll try to we'll do our best to kind of talk to everybody today. And then how does funding work at the graduate level? When should you look for funding? And I can explain what I mean by that in a little bit. Objectives continued. Why is graduate school a valuable opportunity and investment? Um, Tips and tricks. I think I said this for reaching out to faculty members. Uh, and then what kind of additional resources are available to you as a graduate student, right? In terms of like the added value of coming to graduate school that exists outside of the core curriculum that you would have in your program. And then, like I said, Polly's going to jump into the actual admissions process of applying to graduate school. So that's kind of an overview. And then also, we'll talk a little bit about some of the, if you are a UI undergraduate student, some of the expedited admissions processes and degree tracks that are available to you. Um, like I said, this is Moscow, Idaho. For those of you who are from Idaho or perhaps even located in Moscow, this is going to seem kind of silly. But for those of you who are from elsewhere, I like to say we're kind of about as far south as you can go while still being North Idaho. We're kind of in the lower part of what's called the Panhandle in the state right here in a kind of farming agrarian region called the Palouse Hills. It's very pretty here, and we have a very beautiful campus, as you can see here off to the right. That's our campus. It's a very forested, very green campus, a very old campus. So the University of Idaho is actually older than the state of Idaho, which is kind of an interesting land grant fun fact that you might answer in a trivia session one day. If you're coming to graduate school and you think that you're young and you're hip and you're cool right now, just give it time. Pretty soon, you're going to have a weekly trivia group and you're going to get into birding or something, okay? It's coming. You're getting, graduate school is that, right? You're beginning to you're getting there, right? You're getting there. So, we have about a population of 25,000 people here in Moscow. That population obviously fluctuates based on when students are here versus when students are not here. If you're somebody who plans to live here year round, it's very peaceful here in the summer. We love students, right? Our job is students, but also that many graduate students stay here year round and they see that there's kind of two different towns that exist. There's the school year and then there's summer, and people really tend to cherish the summers here because they're very quiet, very, very peaceful. U of I, the graduate student population is about 2,000 students. So that kind of obviously that fluctuates every semester, but we usually hover right around 2,000 graduate students. We're what you call a true mid-sized university. I was just meeting last night with a new associate professor here, and we were talking. He was very surprised at how it just seems like everybody kind of knows each other on the UI campus, and that's true. That's something that we all, I think, really value is that we're not necessarily a small institution, but you still have that feeling of kind of knowing everybody and being on a like a first name basis with a lot of people, and yeah, and that's kind of a it's a nice part of living here. Lots of restaurants and coffee shops, lots of places to see live music. I think that it has kind of the staples of a traditional college town. And then it's also near tons of natural beauty. The Palouse Hills are beautiful. We have Moscow Mountain nearby. And then, to the north of us, you have all kinds of mountains. You have the Willowas to the west. You have lots of rivers. And then I don't have a bullet point on this, but people oftentimes want to know where the nearest city is. And the nearest city to us is Spokane, Washington, that has an international airport. We also have flights that service in and out of Moscow Pullman Regional Airport as well. So, as I said, all of us work for a department called the College of Graduate Studies. Some of us are located kind of more firmly in COGS proper, and then some of us are kind of located in graduate admissions. It's all part of the College of Graduate Studies. Those are just sort of two spheres of our department. We are the graduate degree granting college at the University of Idaho. So we are the umbrella college that all departments sort of fit into at the graduate level. The way I kind of like to illustrate it to people is that it's like we're like the federal government and the departments are like the states. And you can extrapolate whatever you want from that. Um, some people wish that there was no scale. No, we really, I think that we have a very good relationship with departments, and we do a lot of things like we allocate, TA positions to them. Though we don't make, and we'll emphasize that here in a minute, we don't make decisions about who gets TA ships, but we do kind of engage in the process of allocating them. We also oversee about, and this number also changes, right? But about 600 graduate research active faculty, and we oversee roughly $100 million in research and grant funding allocations every year. So we do quite a bit here, but what you'll find is that we are the kind of bureaucratic institution that you have to engage with in some capacity if you are a graduate student, right? A lot of the forms that you're going to fill out will go through COGS, have to be approved by COGS. So we do, and we do a lot of work to make sure that you understand what those processes are. But if you do come to the University of Idaho, you will have to engage with our department in some way. So moving on, we offer lots of different degree types. I'm not going to get into all of these. I will say that I do want to point out we have a new one. The Master of Business Administration is back. We used to have one, and I think that it went away for a little bit. And we now have a new MBA program. Um, Here. And as you can see here, we have PhD tracks. We have a number of different master's degrees, professional science master's degrees. Those are kind of like skills-based science STEM degrees. We primarily have a PSM in like water resources right now. Happy to talk about that. It's a program we want to grow. We have a non-degree track as well. So non-degree is something if sometimes people don't have they don't maybe somebody struggled academically, but they still want to go to graduate school. Sometimes people will pursue a non-degree path in order to get a couple graduate credits and get their GPA up before applying formally to a program. So we have non-degree track for that, and then we have a series of certificates as well. And you can oftentimes people will stack certificates on top of the actual program that they're or the actual degree that they're obtaining. And then this is a link I put on here to our graduate index page. Someone can drop it in the chat, but also Polly is going to touch on that when she speaks here in just a little bit. So I won't spoil it for you. I'll drop it in there in a little bit. Okay, I also want to hit on this, which is thesis versus non-thesis, and this is definitely relevant to our domestic applicants, and that is because when you hear these terms, non-thesis really refers to a more coursework focused, often skills-based degree. Um, and it unlike the thesis track, does not require you to actually have a thesis document that you submit at the end of your program, right? So it's oftentimes less research focused, whereas a thesis track is more research focused. Is the simplest way I can kind of lay that out to you. What I will say is that a lot of our non-thesis degrees are what we call kind of professional degrees. They are degrees that are focused around perhaps getting a degree on a very specific timeline. They are degrees that are more focused on gaining, giving you work skills. And the reason why people will do a non-thesis degree is because, well, maybe you're going into a career path where it doesn't matter if you've done research, you just need to have the degree itself, right? So, for instance, we have a lot of people who uh, want to work for the Forest Service or the BLM, some of these natural resource-based degrees, or even people who go into like engineering degrees, right, where they know that they're going to hit a hiring plateau at some point, and they just need to get the degree. It doesn't matter if they have publications or have conducted research. It really is just something to kind of check a box. In which case, the non-thesis degree is oftentimes a really, really good option for you. Um, and then thesis, is something where, perhaps you're doing a thesis-based master's degree to get research experience to then be able to apply to a PhD program or maybe to another, kind of a higher professional program such as like vet school or med school, or maybe you're just interested in doing research. So there's all kinds of reasons why you would do one over the other. And I'm super happy to have, I'll drop my email on the chat here towards the end. I'm very happy to kind of have, especially if you are actually applying, right, and you're serious about maybe coming to the University of Idaho, I'm happy to have a conversation about, what works best for you. So, moving on, we also have, like I said, for those of you just who aren't UI, just bear with me here for a second. We also have for our undergrad people who are undergraduate UI students right now, there are several expedited and condensed degree programs that we offer to UI students, and so one of them is Vandal Expedited Admissions, which is basically it's literally an expedited admissions process. That's kind of what it is exclusively, and so this is available to certain programs and to people with certain GPAs. It helps, waive letters of rec and certain requirements to kind of just kind of move your application on quicker. And then we also have what's called the Vandal 4+1 master's degree, which I keep saying is like a new thing we're doing, but it's actually becoming something that's been around now for a couple of years. And it's kind of it's a lot of people are showing interest in it, but basically the 4+1 is a way just ensure it's a way of reserving and sharing credits during your undergraduate degree to then um, add just one extra academic year of study to your undergraduate, right? So it's 4 years of undergraduate plus 1 year of one academic year of graduate study, and you can get a master's degree. And they also provide the same tuition rates that you pay as an undergraduate student. So it's a way to get a master's degree quicker and cheaper. And only certain programs apply for that. I have links here. I will send these slides out, by the way, after the presentation, but also maybe some of my colleagues will drop links in the chat as well. So these are definitely options that are open to folks with the 4+1 degree in particular. If you are somebody who's like a sophomore or a junior, I suggest having the conversation with admissions in your department about how to be on track to do the 4+1. Sooner rather than later, because like I said, you have to share and reserve credits, which is something that we won't necessarily dive super deep into right now. But it is a process, a relatively simple process, but a process that you have to make sure that you do. So, um, okay, how to get started. So like I said, some of you may be started already, but the first thing that you want to do, and maybe you've already done, is identify the program and the degree type that you want to pursue. You also need to understand who you want to work with. So we're going to talk in a second about how to reach out to faculty members. But I think that's something that, so I've sat on decision committees for master's programs before, and been a part of that process. And the number one reason why at least in the decision committees that I was on, people got denied is because they didn't articulate why they wanted to study in our program, right? Like they talked very generally or generically about programs, right? But they didn't necessarily mention who they wanted to work with, why they wanted to work with them, right? They didn't express why they'd be a good fit. So understanding who you want to work with is very crucial. And you also need to think about what your long-term goals are. So going back to that whole conversation I had about thesis versus non-thesis, why some people would just do a quicker non-thesis degree, right? That's less research intensive. It really depends on what your career goals are, or what your personal goals are too. Some people just personally want to have that research experience, because you crave knowledge, right? And I think that that's just a conversation you need to have with yourself. But like I said, I'll have my email in the chat after this. I'm super happy I have those kinds of conversations with people all the time. And I can do my best to help guide you. Um, do you need to attend full or part-time? That's another thing. So some people have children or they have full-time jobs, right? And I will say that that's a question that I've gotten before is like, can I go to graduate school part-time? It's a little bit dependent on the program. So some programs I would say it's not necessarily that there's a policy in place that says that they can't accept part-time students. They just don't for whatever reason, right? They don't have it set up in a way that they feel like they could support a part-time student. Now that being said, if you're somebody who's interested in going into education, like most of them, I feel like are part-time students, right? Because a lot of them are teaching. They're working teaching jobs already. And so, it really depends on the program. And that's a good, a very reasonable question to ask when you reach out to the department themselves, because they could answer that for you. So, but technically, it can be accommodated. On paper, it can be accommodated. Uh, and then again, will you do a thesis or non-thesis track? And then reaching out to faculty members, in particular, if you want funding, right? So let's get into this. How to reach out to faculty. That is always a question people have. So there's no formula for this. There's no exact template for how to reach out to faculty members, but you typically reach out via email. You need to be formal, right? Like, don't be super, um, don't, obviously don't be too loose when, when you email them. But, the most important part is to be very concise. So something that you have to, I used to teach technical writing for a few years, and I would always tell my students that you have to imagine, and this is probably true of all writing, right? Any writing, yes, good. So not just technical writing, any writing that's intended to be read by somebody, you have to think about who that person is that's going to be reading what you wrote, right? How are they going to be engaging with it? Well, I can tell you right now that faculty members are very busy. They're all busy. I've never met a faculty member who's not. And not only are they busy, they're like too busy. Like they are overloaded with things, right? You need to have something that can be more or less skimmed and they'll get the point, right? Um, you can attach as well. I call it like a truncated CV, right? So oftentimes people will sort of list their qualifications, why they want to work with that faculty member, um, and then they will attach like a very concise version. I think technically, and this is where I'm always like fuzzy on the difference between a resume and a CV. Maybe that's a resume, right? A resume is like a shortened up CV. A CV is more comprehensive, so you might want to attach a resume. Um, uh, and unless the faculty member is like, "Let me see your CV," and they like want the long document, then send it to them if they asked for it. But I would say like initially, just give them something that has like relevant experience attached to it. Um, this kind of goes without saying, but I'm just gonna, we live in a time of the proliferation of artificial intelligence, and so I'm just gonna disclaim this right now. Don't AI generate uh, communication with faculty members, and certainly don't AI generate any part of your application. We know you're not fooling anybody. Uh, it's obvious, and we see you, right? We see you if you do it. So, I think that sometimes people are a little bit insecure about their communication skills, or it's just like stressful to write this communication out. So they'll kind of crutch on, AI generated text. And I suppose it's okay to generate prompts and help, your thought process using AI, but certainly don't have it write any part of any of this. And that's something that I think that we've just seen a huge increase in, and it's always obvious, and just don't do it. That's just like a hard and fast rule. Uh, we'd rather see your authentic self, right? Um, so yeah. And then the big thing really here is like number one trick. Like, um, if I was to like break, number one thing you should do is if you're interested in working with somebody or you're interested in working in a department, read publications. Read publications with that faculty member. Read publications coming out of that department, right? Most departments have areas of strength, right? They have things that they specialize in. And certainly every faculty member does, right? They have a specific kind of research they've gotten really good at doing, and there's, probably plenty of publications out there that you can read. A lot of them are open source these days. And if they're not open source, get a hold of me. I have UI credentials. I can find it for you. I'd be happy to do that for you because I hate that things are paywalled. So, I would be happy to help you. That should never be an excuse for you, right? You should read papers that are published by the person you want to work with. Because when you reach out to them, you should be able to center that. Also, faculty, and I'm going to speak a little bit, this is a little bit tongue in cheek right now. It's not, I'm not being serious, but I think it's, you should imagine that I am. And that is that maybe they're a little selfish, right? Maybe they want you to talk about them, right? Imagine that. They want you to talk about them and they want to talk about themselves. And you should, even if the faculty member is not that way, you should imagine that they are when you reach out to them. And you should put that in your email. You should make sure that like their research focuses are emphasized before this is like this sounds harsh, but before your own, right? Because especially if, and we'll get into the different kinds of assistantships here in a second. If you're looking to hop on to like a grant, right? You'll be hired to literally fulfill part of their research obligations, right? So they need to know that you are familiar with what those, what their research focus is, right? That you're excited to do it, that you're somebody who would be a good team player, right? Um, and so I think like, I don't like to put it that way, but that really is how you should approach this. So, like I said, there's no formula for how to do it, but these are just some good tips and tricks that I've found to be effective. Okay, how does funding work at the graduate level? So I say that if you, okay, and this is like my advice to you. This is not a reflection of anything. This is my advice to you. There are certain degrees that that you can probably self-fund or go into a little bit of debt for, and it would pay off, right? So these are like engineering degrees. These are some of these professionally focused degrees, right? However, if you're somebody who's like going into the humanities, or you're somebody who is doing, I mean, really, actually, like a lot of research-based degrees, right? Get it funded. Get it funded. Don't don't make a bad financial decision. I think that honesty is like the best approach to this. I think I don't, I do not want COGS to appear predatory in our recruiting practices. Like get funded. There's funding out there. If you can't find it here at UI, you can find it somewhere else, right? I want students who are going into those types of degrees to have those conversations and to reach out about research and teaching assistantships. Now, are you gonna, so the idea is that you trade, a little bit of your labor for, a tuition waiver and a stipend. It's a modest stipend. I'm not gonna, I will always say that. Like it's, you're not rich, but you do get paid money. And that's a new exciting idea for a lot of people. And so that's sort of how a researcher teaching assistantship works. Usually they are about 20-hour a week contracts. On top of that, you also go and do your coursework and whatever your own research is. So that's something people need to understand too, that usually those things don't align. Right. So those are kind of separate things. Now, sometimes people luck out and they get onto a research assistantship where their research is the research being conducted. That's a highly unique kind of case by case thing. And so we always tell people to understand that like those are two distinct things. Like there's the work that you're doing for your assistantship, and then there's the coursework and the research that you're conducting. Two different things. Um, they are limited too. So, like I said, the College of Graduate Studies, we allocate those assistantships every year to departments. We don't make any decision about who does or does not get them, though. So these are all conversations you need to be having with faculty members and perhaps the departments themselves. Usually they have an administrative person that you can field your questions through initially. Also, sometimes there's work education reimbursement that people will take advantage of. So, in particular, like I said, like those like engineering, natural resource type degrees, sometimes the agency or the company that you're working for will reimburse you for to for education, right? And then, like I said, be very wary of this, but also like student loans are an option. The Pell Grant is something that exists at the undergraduate level, but does not exist at the graduate level. And I think that that surprises some people. So just be aware of that, that if you're somebody who is utilizing a Pell Grant for your undergraduate studies, you do not receive that at the graduate level. Um, Also, I'm going to be doing a how to fund your graduate education session that's going to go much more exhaustively into how funding works. That's on November 4th. Forgot to put the time here, 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock. I'll make sure, so you probably will receive just naturally through, the whatever, how we're communicating to our prospective students, you should receive that communication. But also, I will make sure that everybody who signed up for this session also gets a registration link for the How to Fund Your Education event as well on November 4th. Okay, moving on. Okay. And then I'm gonna hand it off to Polly here in a second, so I'm gonna kind of like try to move it along because I know that we have only limited time. Um, so I will say that there are a couple great reasons to go to graduate school. Graduate school is not for everybody. I that's another thing I think we should emphasize is that like, there are reasons to go. Graduate school is a tool. It's a tool to get to where you need to go in life, right? Um, and those reasons and those end goals, they are myriad, they are numerous. I could not tell you all of them, right? These are conversations I'm happy to have with you, though, if you are considering coming to graduate school on an individual basis. But some of the reasons are there is some data that suggests that advanced degrees return higher lifetime salaries and earnings. Um, you also gain increased critical thinking skills. You have an increased capacity for learning. I know that when I went to graduate school, I felt like when I graduated my undergraduate, I was like just heating up. Like that was kind of how I'm like, dude, I'm still cooking, that's how I felt. And I just needed more time, to really engage with the subject matter that I felt like I was just beginning to learn. Graduate school is an excellent opportunity to do that. I also um, I found a funded position too, right? So it just made sense to do it. Um, Certain agencies and businesses impose hiring plateaus. I'm gonna emphasize that again and again that like there are certain career trajectories where like you will need to get at least a master's degree, and a lot of those non-thesis professional tracks are great and they are cost effective and they are time effective for achieving that. And those are the kinds of degrees where like that you could truly view it as an investment. It literally is something like you probably put time and money into, but it will, you can literally see the tangible, um, job prospect that you will be able to achieve with it, right? If you have a certain track where it's like it will like definitely pay off and you can crunch those numbers and it makes a ton of sense. And then also you increase your professional network and support. People come to graduate school because you can meet people. You can meet faculty members who have been in industry. You can learn how to conduct research. You can get those letters of recommendation that, like, maybe right now, like a lot of people, right, in this stage of applying to things, they're like, I don't even have any good references. And like, references are valuable. References are gold, and people come to graduate school to procure those. I know that virtually all of the references that I have now for job applications or any further schooling has all happened post my undergraduate degree. It's all been through graduate school and work experience, right? And so graduate school, like work experience, is a way to gain those things. Um, so yeah, that's just a couple of the reasons why somebody would come to graduate school. I also want to say that, and this is something I think is true of, you know, any university that is worth its stuff, right? I think that but I can say here at UI we do a lot of we have a lot of added value to our degrees, and so we have just through the College of Graduate Studies tons of professional development courses. We have a lot of mental health services that we offer our graduate students. Cognitive behavioral therapy training courses. We have group therapy. We have a mental health series webinar that we do as well with a licensed therapist here on campus. We have writing support. We have teaching and pedagogy courses that you can actually get additional certifications at no cost to you if you're, an enrolled graduate student. So really, we do our best to support our students here because we know that this can be kind of a weird time of life to navigate through, and we do our best to provide a good scaffolding and a roadmap for you moving forward. So, and we kind of pride ourselves on that. Like I think that like we sink quite a bit of resources and time and care into doing that. Now, I'm gonna kind of pass it off to Polly. Polly, I'm gonna unshare my screen. And I'm going to let you take over. And then I can field any questions at the end that any of you may have. But yeah, Polly, I'll pass it over to you now.
Thank you, Michael. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to see you here. My name is Polly Tojanano. I'm the director of the Graduate Admissions Office, and I'm here with my team, Jay and Chelsea. And I know that some of you are U of I students, some of you are not. So my presentation will probably cover both. And maybe students who are not yet at U of I would realize, oh, it's so awesome to go to the U of I, so they'll apply. And those who are already at U of I would say, oh, it's so awesome to be at the U of I. We're going to stay. Okay, so I am going to also ask, I'm going to make some breaks in between my presentation in case you have questions, because at times they may need to be addressed in real time. So here we go. So regardless of where you started your graduate application, most likely you'll end up here at some point. And this is where we actually recommend that you start your application because as you can see, there is no apply button here. And this is with a purpose because we will actually want you to, I'm just going to select a random program. Um, we want you to get to this page and become familiar with the application requirements and then eventually apply now. This is a at glance type of information that you can get about programming and program availability. Some programs might not be offered. Some programs might not be offered online, or some might not be offered on campus. And it's important to see this information. You'll also have that selection and information, additional information when you start the application, but when you are doing your research, make sure to read here. There is another link that takes you directly to the academic program. This is also important to check because at times uh, d- uh, each program has a page describing their programming degree plan. Some are better than others. I would have to say programs that are more non-thesis, more professional in nature will have a very clear degree plan. Others that are thesis based or PhD, which would probably require a more customized curriculum, will not have that, will not go that in depth in terms of course offering or but it's a good idea to read through this information because it will get you familiarized. And please reach out to faculty. The Director of Graduate Studies, each program has a Director of Graduate Studies, and this is the person who's usually the contact person. It's the faculty that will make the final decision on the application evaluation and review. And they should be available for you, of course, keeping in mind that they're all super, super busy. Um, do you have any questions before I move forward and explain a little bit of the actual application? You can also put them in chat if you're shy and you don't want to be put on the spot. Okay. Well, once you have made your decision on what information is needed for your application, our application takes usually 4 or 5 minutes to fill out. It really depends on how ready you are with, especially letters of recommendation or recommenders available um, to provide your letters of recommendations. Because you'll have to input their information in that in the application. Um,
Polly, I actually do have a question. I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
Go ahead, of course.
And I can take this offline if it's not relevant for other, attendees to the webinar. But I'm a returning student to U of I, and so I'm just finishing up my undergrad, and then wanted to come here. So is there? So I don't really know the professors anymore because I haven't been, to the university in so many years, and I'm just taking one class right now just to finish out my undergrad. Um, so I guess that places me at a disadvantage because I don't, really know the professors anymore. But any, I guess, advice on that, or should I take that offline?
Not at all. I think it's a great question for everyone, actually, especially for your vice students who might be here on um, might be attending this webinar. I have a question for you. What program are you applying to?
For my undergrad?
For your grad, what program are you intending to apply to?
Okay. I was thinking about the Masters of Business, yeah, the Masters in Business. Yeah,
Okay, so the Masters of Business Administration offers expedited admission, which means, and this is an option for U of I students, returning especially, and or for students who want to continue directly from their undergrad, which offers a direct entry for students, U of I students who complete their undergrad with a minimum 3.0 GPA in a similar or related, um, and your surprise would be that this program does not require letters.
that's perfect. Thank you.
And there are, so there is information about it here. Um, and yeah, the application fee will be waived. Letters of recommendation will be waived. We do require a statement of purpose and probably a resume just to use to determine Idaho residency.
Of course.
Um, but it's very important as a U of I students, and we've seen that a lot where students do not, even though they are indicating that I am a former U of I returning, they forget to fill out the information that they are earning an undergraduate degree from the U of I, and this option does not pop up for them. So always remember to include all your attended institutions, including the University of Idaho. Even if you haven't earned a degree, you can select there that you are expecting a degree from the U of I.
All right. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a great question, and this is a great opportunity for students um, to um, enroll in a graduate degree without having, because you are already known to the institution. You have followed the University of Idaho's curriculum, and that actually recommends you to a graduate degree. So our reasoning was, if we can't accept our own students, to our graduate programs, it means that we're not preparing them correctly. So um, faculty who approved this track are very confident that students who go through our curriculum qualify to complete a master's degree. So, um, looking at graduation rates, U of I students coming from an undergraduate degree into a graduate degree have the highest rate of graduation. Because probably they're familiar with the system, they're familiar with, or yeah, that needs to be determined. But very important to remember, as a graduate student, as a U of I student, all University of Idaho students, regardless of when they earned their undergraduate degree from the U of I, qualify to share, with the department's approval, to share a maximum of 6 credits between their undergraduate and graduate transcript. So you could potentially start your program, especially if it's more of an interdisciplinary type of program like business. You could potentially start your graduate program with 6 credits already earned. Um, if you and there are students out there who have credits they're not needed. They don't really need those for their undergraduate to complete their requirements for their undergraduate degree. If you have those credits, please remember to reserve them because you could also reserve up to an additional 6 credits and potentially even start your graduate degree with 12 credits earned. So keep that in mind.
That's great. Thanks so much.
Of course. All right. So coming back to the application, you will be prompted once you to either create an account or log into an existing account. I have an existing account. I just wanted to give you like just a first glance of the application. It could, depending on the program that you're applying to, this could potentially take 5 minutes. Um, I'm Mickey Mouse. So I already have an application started. You'll be prompted to start a new one here. You can go back in, you don't have to finish it. All the information that you input, as long as you click on the continue page, will be saved. I always recommend reading the instructions on the first page. We're trying to provide as much information as possible here. And we even ask you at the end a question like, hey, have you checked this? And a reminder to go back and review it. I would say all pages are very important, but my recommendation is to always fill out the application in order because, for example, depending on the information you put on your personal information, like if you are a US citizen, you have access to apply to a more extended deadline than international students. So we've had students who said, why can't I apply to spring? I thought the deadline is still open, but that's because they jumped directly to the program of study and the conditional logic within the application did not identify them as a US citizen, if that makes sense. So I am not sure why my application is not moving faster, but you should move faster. Once you submit your application, you'll get communication from us, probably a little more than you would like, but we want to make sure that you are always in tune with the requirements that you still need to satisfy. Applications for not all programs offer admission for all terms, so there's no intake. For example, during the summer, there is very limited intake. However, fall and spring are a little more open. Um, However, when the department offers an intake for a certain program, we keep the application open until the start of the semester, unless the program specifically requires us to close it. I'm really not sure what's going on. It's probably my internet. Um, One other thing to keep in mind is, and then I think that depending on how well informed a student is about the application requirements, they can finish the application at the time that they submit it, which is really awesome to see. Um, for that, I think where there is always hang up for domestic applications, that's usually with understanding what transcripts to provide, because we do. That is a registrar that requires transcripts from all attended institutions, post-secondary institutions, including those where you transfer credits from, unless you only took a maximum of, pardon me, 9 credits. So in those cases, we're not going to require a transcript. Um, it, it's a it's helpful if you indicate that in your application, but we will not be asking for a transcript. Um, and the way we accept unofficial transcripts, and most students can provide that. And by unofficial, there is, depending on the institution, there might be transcripts that are contain all the information that we need, including the institution's name. Oh, I apologize, there is some noise. But if you have a question, please send us an email and we'll also send you notification about what we need. Um, Coming back to affording your graduate degree, um, most professional programs offer an option for WRGP tuition. So what this actually is very similar if you are on the from the western part of the U.S., very similar to the UWI program, the Western Undergraduate Exchange, with the only difference that only certain programs qualify. Um, so will you don't have to submit a separate application for this. We'll identify you from the information you provide in your personal on your personal page. I apologize. I hope it doesn't. There is a
It's
lot of noise.
Polly, it's actually not too noticeable. Don't worry.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
it's totally fine. Yep.
I highly recommend looking at this page and see if you qualify. Additionally, if you take all courses online, you also qualify for our stage tuition. So try to save wherever you can, like Michael was mentioning, because um, I agree with him. A graduate degree should help um, rather than hurt your personal finances or generally your well-being. Um, and just look for all these options to reduce the tuition and payments fees. Um, Domestic students also qualify for a large number of scholarships. Those are granted or offered through the um, financial aids office. I think graduate students, Amanda might have some information. I don't know. I'm putting you on the spot. Sometimes you might be getting a notification that you qualified and that a certain scholarship was awarded to you without you having to apply. But other times you might need to inquire and you might need to work with financial aid for that. But again, every little scholarship counts. Um, that's really pretty much that what I wanted to say. In terms of 4+1, we did have an info session a little while back. For 4+1, what I always recommend is it's an awesome program. But it does require Idaho residency, and I'm very happy to help students navigate that. And if you look up University of Idaho 4+1, you can schedule a meeting with me and I can meet with you one-on-one and advise you a little more in depth. I'm very happy to answer any questions you may have.
We had one in the chat about housing. I can talk about that.
Mhm.
So I'd say that housing in Moscow is relatively affordable. However, I mean, comparatively to other places, so I think people are usually pleasantly surprised. You can find a one bedroom apartment for around $600 here, if you look hard. And the only problem that people run into, I would say, is get on housing early. So there is limit, I would say that the problem people have is sometimes they will not start looking for housing until July. School starting in August, and then they'll run into issues. We've had to work with several students who run into that, in which case they have to kind of either get something that's not favorable or wait until the next semester. However, I think that usually if people get on housing in the late spring or the early summer, usually you can find something at a relatively affordable price. Like I have a two-bedroom duplex type house, and it's nicer, and and it's like 850 a month. So I think that it's you can yeah, and then yes, OJ made a comment that a lot of apartments start taking applications around February to March for places. So really, the earlier the better is kind of the best advice I could give on that. Any other questions for any of us, really? Oh yeah, also yeah, thank you. I'm gonna put my email in the chat right now. So this is my personal email. You can definitely. Oh, I sent that to one person. Sorry, not to everybody. I'm really bad about that. I always do the thing where I forget to put it back to everyone. There we go. Everyone should see that. And then also graduate admissions has an email as well. I'm not sure if anybody wants to plop that in there.
There is a question in here from someone who unfortunately had to leave the meeting, and what they were asking was, do I still need to reach out to the department if I am applying for a non-thesis online program? This is a great question.
Yeah.
I would say, and then Michael, maybe you will have more
Mhm.
information working with students, but I would say that it's not necessary to reach out to them or get some sort of a pre-approval or because you'll be applying to a very like set curriculum
Mhm.
and you're not depending on a certain major professor or project. So because sometimes admission is dependent on an existing project.
I would echo that. I think that it's far less crucial because those programs have a far larger capacity to bring students on. So it really has a lot more to do with if you just meet the minimum requirements to be admitted to the program, such as GPA and anything else they have. But even GPA honestly can be we can petition that as well. There's a process for that to be admitted provisionally, which we could get into that whole can of worms too. Um, but I think that yeah, it's not as important for those online programs,
And
non-thesis
there's
track.
another question about letters of recommendation. I can speak from our side as admissions officers who review applications. We've seen good letters of recommendation, bad letters of recommendation, and complete and letters of recommendation that don't say anything and which are not helpful. Uh, Not all programs require three letters of recommendation. There are some that require one or two. Um, Maybe Michael can speak more about this in terms of like how to get those recommendations that would help your application.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that like people are oftentimes perplexed by who they can ask. They'll be like, "Well, I was very," the common one is like, "I was very quiet in my classes in my undergraduate, and I never actually formed, kind of, any relationships with my professors." And I tell people, especially, at this level, like anybody who can speak to your academic or um, your professionalism, right? So these can be people that you've worked with. Really, the biggest rule is they can't be a family member. I would say don't have your mom or your cousin write one for you. Um, don't have your neighbor write one. That might be, and then also really suggest to them to submit it electronically via a Word document. Sometimes they come in handwritten. Um, my my advice is that's probably not the best the best letter of recommendation either. But yeah, anyone who can speak to your professional or academic character can write a letter of recommendation for you. And I think that sometimes, it's nice when you have three perfectly, yeah, they're all professors and did undergraduate research, but a lot of people don't have that and they still get admitted to graduate school. So
There's another question if we would recommend getting more than the required amount of recommendations. So
I don't
my
think it
recommendation,
matters.
my suggestion is that when you fill out your application, you have the option to add up to five recommenders. It really depends. Once your application becomes complete with at least three recommenders, it will be reviewed by the department. But what if one of that person who you really wanted their recommendation may be delaying it?
Mhm.
So it really depends. I would say get three really awesome letters of recommendation rather than more.
Yeah, like three really good ones is better than
Mhm.
five
Yeah,
average ones.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We also have another one too about okay, if you're interested in pursuing a PhD program out of undergrad, are you still likely to get accepted without having a master's degree in that field already? I can speak to this and to say that people get admitted all the time to PhD programs right out of their undergrad. It's very common, and I don't think that that would work against you at all. So sometimes it's not. I mean, sometimes people will do a master's degree if they need to have a buffer because they have to get a GPA up or they have to get more research experience or there's reasons why people get master's degrees in between PhDs, but I would say that it's very common for people to go straight from undergraduate into a PhD program.
And if I may add, also, and maybe Taylor, Taylor, he's not here.
Yeah, Taylor had to
Um,
take off.
yes. So a lot of times students apply for a master's and then we get an email from the department saying, can you please move the student to a PhD? Because maybe the grant that they want to onboard the student on requires a PhD student.
Mhm.
And also to remember that once you are on a PhD track, after 2 years, if you have completed the requirements for a master's, you can earn a master's and continue on with your PhD.
Yeah.
So that's you can also add a couple of graduate certificates on there as well that usually go concurrent. So you can get more credentials, but yes, you do, you can be admitted into a PhD, especially if you have significant undergraduate research experience, if you're already working um, with a professor. And you could also in your statement of purpose when you apply mention that you strive to obtain the PhD and wanted to start on that track early on.
Any other questions for us? I see a couple comments in the chat, but no questions. You're also, like I, said, you're more than welcome to send us emails. Please allow, sometimes this time of year, we're fielding many emails. So give us, a couple days. See, are there any good resources for how to write a letter of intent? Um,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, we have some resources. Polly, did you want to talk to that or?
Yes. So I wanted to talk about there's two questions. One question, someone is asking that they're not able to see where to submit their personal statement. The personal statement, depending, I can look up at your application. It really depends on what type of applicant you are because you might actually be prompted to submit that once you, uh, after you have submitted your application in your portal. But I can take a quick look at your application and then see if that's the case. And another question about letters of, pardon me, the letter of intent or statement of purpose. We actually, with Taylor, having planned, and maybe Michael, if you, because you used to teach this webinar on how to write the perfect statement of purpose. Um, there is definitely a formula to write that, and we do send out information to students once they apply. We could actually send that email with instructions to prospective students as well. So we've seen our good share of not that well-written statements. And a couple of years ago, I reached out to faculty and I asked them, what do you want to see in a statement of purpose? And I selected five of their, and I have them here. But it's just basically information that you probably already have. I think that a lot of times students overcomplicate statement of purposes, and it's just becoming more like an application for, I don't know, Broadway. Just this is, no, you have to be very, very specific. You have to just represent yourself in the best way and represent your achievements and just really, there was a statement of purpose one time that I read. There was a long page of absolutely nothing.
Mhm.
So people not substantiating, just mentioning I have experience in broadcasting, but not substantiating that with an example, for example. And I had another because we do review those. We don't make decisions, but we do review um, complete applications. And there was another statement of purpose from someone who was coming back into their program. And that statement of purpose started with, if I beat cancer, I can get a graduate degree. And then it was just very honest, and it was very that person said, I don't have significant life experience, professional experience. My GPA is not extraordinary, but I've been through this significant challenge in my life and I've learned, so just to really make your case, but in a very authentic way. So and also it really depends on the program that you're applying to, but I would say that uh, a statement of purpose takes a long time to write, but at the same time, it takes, just go with your instinct. I don't know. Michael, you have a degree in English and more experience, so please
I,
elaborate.
I would just say that the most important thing is to articulate why you'd be a good fit in that program. I think that that's like, yeah, there's a lot of ways to do this. And the most important thing, I think that, when I was doing a lot of statement of purpose reading in a selection committee setting was just that people didn't articulate why our program, right? Like that was the biggest reason why our eyes would just glaze over and we would move on, is we're like, well, they don't seem to, you know, really want to be in this program. It just seems like they want to be in a program. And so I think that really, yeah. Oh, it looks like we have, oh, nice. Okay. I thought someone dropped 6 questions into the chat there for a minute. I was like, whoa, I'll do my best. Okay, great. Okay, yeah, no, and Polly dropped those in there. That's really great that you came up with that document, Polly. So yeah, okay. Anybody else? Speak now or just email me later. So, um, I'm told I need to be more comfortable with silence when I lecture. Oh, we have something. Thank yous. Oh yeah, no, you're welcome. Okay, awesome. Well, I'll take that as a sign, and I will conclude the session. And hopefully, be talking to some of you soon. Maybe seeing some of you on campus. And have a good one, everybody. Thanks, y'all.